What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video today. I have some sad news. About 2 weeks ago, I was doing a music video, and I was doing donuts in the music video around kind of the videographer. And unfortunately, while I was doing the donuts, my engine started knocking, so it sounds like rod knock. The only thing abnormal I found was that my oil temperatures were so incredibly high. So today, we're pulling the engine out. I've already got a bit of a head start here without you guys. I started late last night, just wanted to bang it out, get through it, and right now, basically all the top stuff that's easy to reach is off the engine. I gotta lift the car up and take all the bottom stuff off, and then it's ready to come out. It's actually not gonna take that long. It's pretty easy when everything's remote mounted. So I took the turbo kit off. You know, all I gotta do is unbolt this plate, unbolt the transmission mount, clutch feed line, and some sensors I have plugged in down there, alternator and starter, and this thing's ready to come out. So you guys missed all the hard work, but honestly it wasn't that hard. I was only out here like an hour last night. Now you're all probably wondering what the plan is. Well, I'm not really sure. Am I just gonna replace whatever rod is bent or broken or gone or spun or whatever? Am I going to build a new engine? Am I switching things up? And the answer is kind of a little bit of everything. One thing that's definitely happening is I'm switching to an aluminum block. One of the guys on my team, Josh, actually gave me this aluminum block right here. It's under this trash bag. And that aluminum block was free because it had lost a piston. I don't know why it lost a piston. It's a Gen 4 block, but the rod was actually still intact. The piston was just kind of gone. He also gave me a set of 823 heads, which are square port heads. So we're going to be kind of switching the whole engine setup. So my plan is to sleeve that engine, put my internals minus the rods into that engine. So it'll be all forged. I'm going to get stronger rods, I think. I hope, if I can. Because I hate my Lunati rods, guys. I hate them. Their rated horsepower is 900, and we run more than that at the crank. So we're always kind of skirting these rods with the turbo setup, and I've just hated them the whole time. I've replaced, I guess this will be the third one I've replaced now. Every time something even minorly happens to the boost pressure or anything, it's like these rods just bend or do whatever. But anyway, so yeah, all my internals are going to that block, and taking apart the turbo kit last night, I found that my intercooler had split on the end tank. So that actually explains a lot of issues I was having, especially with idle. I could not figure out why I had this like phantom high idle. Always checking couplers, always checking vacuum lines. Never found that crack because I never looked for a crack. And it's kind of small. It's right on the front of the intercooler. See, split right on the weld there. And it's actually kind of bowed outward. So this is definitely from boost pressure. So I think this engine, while doing those donuts, saw a combination of very high oil temperatures, very high boost, and maybe some other things. I'm not really sure, but we'll get into it when we tear the engine down. I also noticed when I took the turbo off last night that actually it's on its way out. You know, these turbos generally last me a couple seasons, and this would have been the third season on this turbo, and it still spins, it still makes boost, it still does everything. It's not even leaking oil. But the turbine is making marks on the compressor housing, so I know that it doesn't have much longer for this world. So with all that being said, I thought that when I do this engine this time, I'm going to save a lot of weight. I'm going to switch to a square port setup, which means I'm going to have to change my intake manifold, and I'm going to change my cam, and I am not going to do a new turbo setup. I just don't want to. There's a lot of issues with the turbo setup. First of all, it's like a DIY home turbo setup that somebody would do to like an F-body Camaro and run like down the quarter-mile pass or run down the drag strip. So it wasn't really ever meant to do what I'm doing with it. The parts get so hot, oil gets so hot, the engine gets so hot, everything gets so hot. I melt things, things break, things crack, things warp. I mean, there's a lot of maintenance to running a turbo kit on an LS in the fashion that I do. So what I'm thinking now is to make a very, very reliable setup that probably doesn't make as much power, but the way the power came on in this car made it really difficult to drive. So I have a really big turbo. It's a T6 hot side. It's twin scroll, and I have 6 liters pushing it, but still, you know, I have to keep it above 3,500. I rev it to 7,000. I mean, this engine's really seeing a lot of torture at high RPM when I'm in full boost. And I'd have to gear it really short. It was like driving 2 different cars. I had a 400 horsepower car under 3,500 RPM, and I had a much higher horsepower car after that. It was like an on-off switch. So it was a little bit difficult to drive in that aspect. You just had to keep the turbo lit. So this time, I want to make it not as high horsepower, but maybe more torque throughout the RPM range. And the way I plan on doing that is a pretty big shot of nitrous. Because I'm switching to the aluminum block, because I'm switching to square port heads, and because I already have a nitrous bracket in the car, I think I want to run like a 250 to 300 shot of nitrous on the new motor. It's going to be forged, and that'll give me a super wide torque band in the RPM range, which will be much easier to drive, I think. The engine is not going to be like, you know, making crazy horsepower like it used to. I figure it'll make like 450 without nitrous and maybe 700 with nitrous, but hopefully it'll make like gobs of torque throughout the RPM range. That should be plenty. The other reason I want to do nitrous is because of the heat management. Nitrous is really, really cold. So hopefully that helps with my intake air temps, because I think that was one of the problems in my engine. And lastly, the weight. The weight of a nitrous kit is going to put basically the bottle weight behind my passenger seat, and the engine weight is going to be much lower because it's an aluminum block. I don't have a probably 60-pound turbo kit hanging out in front of my front strut towers inducing understeer. So I have had understeer a couple times in this car, and I think moving the weight back or toward the center of the car is going to help that. But yeah, there's a lot of benefits to using nitrous. One of the huge detriments though is you have to fill nitrous bottles. So nitrous is expensive. You have to have a bunch of bottles on hand for like a day at the track, like a competition day. But another benefit is that I don't always have to run the nitrous. If I do 2 tunes, I can run 450 horsepower at local events, and then I can switch the tune and crank on the nitrous for competition days. So I don't have to use nitrous all the time. I don't have to put my engine through that even for just local days, which was a big problem with the turbo on the Turbo LS, because every time you brought it out, you could guarantee you were going through a lot of tires, big ones, expensive ones, a lot of fuel, a lot of everything. So it'd be nice to be able to turn it down for local days. All right, it's been about 27 seconds. I've got everything unclipped. We're about to test the tensile strength of anything I forgot. And other than that, motor's ready to come out. It really didn't take long at all. So we're all hooked up. Transmission's still on. It's coming out with the motor. Let's see how this goes. Feed line for the turbo somehow got looped around the steering shaft and then like hooked on another tube up at the top of the motor, so it was keeping me from pulling it. Oh, those times you wish you had friends. That'll help you. So your transmission doesn't bang into the top of your tunnel. Try to maneuver it. It's the end of an era. Hopefully no more turbo LS, unless I find a better way to do it. But the engine occupying this area should be different. I want to try something new. There she is over there. So over the next week, I'm going to find some motivation and break down this engine, take the trans off, take the pistons out, take the internals out, take the heads off, see what's broken inside of it, find out what's going on. Then all the components and the new aluminum block are going to go down to Tim Estrom over at Patriot Performance down in Williamson, Georgia. He built my buddy Philippe's engine, and he runs about 1,100 foot-pounds of torque with a 100mm turbo on it. And he's also going to help me out on my engine. So like I said, we're going to sleeve that aluminum block to make sure it's pretty bulletproof. We're going to put all the forged internals in it and get them all cleaned up and make sure the tolerances are right. I want to balance this thing like as balanced as it can be so we can rev it really high. We rev to 7,000 now and haven't had any issues at all, but we might be able to go up a little bit more. And then yeah, down the road, hopefully we can shoot some nitrous into this engine and it lasts a long time with maybe 700 horsepower, 700 foot-pounds of torque, but like a dyno that looks like a plateau or something. You know, not like this Mount Everest dyno that I have now. So thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. We'll see you next time.